clinical evaluation. In this context, I would invite Professor Dr. Asha Murthy, Senior Cardiologist from SRM Institute of Medical Sciences, Chennai, and along with her, Dr. Sandeep Rai. He is the Professor and Unit Head of Department of Medicine at MGM Institute of Medical Sciences, Navi Mumbai, as well as he is also a Senior Consultant, Diabetologist, Apollo Hospital, Mumbai. So over to the chairpersons.
At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Mahapatra, Dr. P.C. Manoria for giving the wonderful opportunity to chair a very important session. And, heart failure with a preserved ejection fraction almost accounting for about half of all the patients of heart failure. The morbidities, of course, the morbidities and mortalities are similar to those of HFrEF patients. But this disorder has got a very complex pathophysiology and characterized by a lot of heterogeneous syndrome. So more and more you're going to hear from a very great speaker, Dr. Sadanand Shetty, and he is going to speak on guidelines and recommendations of the heart failure with the preserved ejection. So over to Dr. Sadanand Shetty.
Thank you, chairpersons, and thank you, Dr. Mahapatra and Dr. Manoria and the organizing team for giving us this opportunity. What I'm going to do for the next 10 minutes is to give you the overview on this very important topic, as Dr. Asha rightly mentioned in the introduction, is the guideline and the recommendation, and as per the European Society of Cardiology 2021. So what I'm going to do is to run through some of the basic slides. Dr. Asha Murthy did mention about when we have equal to more than 50% ejection fraction, we call it as heart failure with a preserved ejection fraction. And in terminology wise, we talk the particular terminology as HFpEF. That means heart failure with a preserved ejection fraction. When it is reduced, we call it as HFrEF. That means a reduced ejection fraction. As you see in this diagram, the ventricle is, like hypertrophied or it's very stiff. And because of that, the normal filling of the ventricle doesn't take place. So when you talk about, the heart failure, we normally mean it's a poor contractility, but that is more of a reduced heart failure. When in a ejection fraction, normal, as in this case, HFpEF, the ventricular ejection fraction is normal, but the ventricular filling is suffering. So it is a basically stiff ventricle, and then we call it as heart failure. And also, as in the introduction mentioned, the treatment is limited, except for the treatment of the risk factors. No proven treatment, but as Dr. Manoria mentioned in the beginning, with the advent of SGLT2 inhibitor, both EMPA and the dapagliflozin, there is a future for this particular concept. It's the same thing what I've shown in the previous slide, end diastolic volume minus end systolic volume, and divide by 70 into 100 is a calculation of the ejection fraction. So HFpEF is nothing but with a normal ejection fraction. So delegates should understand word failure we use in spite of normal pumping, because it's the diastole is affected. In a case of HFrEF, it is the systole which is affected. So both systole is important, diastolic filling of the heart is important. So in a HFrEF, it is a reduced systolic dysfunction, and in HFpEF, it is a diastolic dysfunction. Basically means the diastole is a period where the ventricle fills. Few important baseline characteristics we must differentiate with the HFpEF and the HFrEF. If you see the HFpEF in the age elderly patient, basically the HFpEF, like atrial fibrillation, is the disease of aging. So older, female more than the men. Hypertension, diabetes, this comorbidity is very, very important, unlike in HFrEF 2+ actually. And then there are other things like CKD, obesity, AF, chronic lung disease. So essentially, when you talk about HFpEF, unlike the HFrEF, the comorbid conditions, elderly age group, diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and all these factors account for diastolic heart failure. And, the same thing what is mentioned, the repeated heart failure admission do occur with the HFpEF, and basically nearly more than 50% of patients, the repeat hospitalization occurs, and approximately 30% of the patients die due to this within 1 year of hospitalization heart failure. So it is as dangerous as systolic failure, HFrEF. So we must remember that HFpEF is better than HFrEF is no more true. It is as bad as HFrEF. Some of the study what we have, Trivandrum heart failure registry, as shown here, showing the mortality as the time passes after the initial hospitalization. Like if you see 1 year, almost 1/3 of the patients succumb. and nearly 3 years is almost 41% succumb. So like what we say, heart failure is more like a malignant disease. 5 years survival is less than 50%. So also, if you see the overall mortality is not significantly different, whether it's a HEPREP or HEPPEP. And if you see the mortality by readmission, in fact, HEPPEP, is more worse than the HEPREP. So this is very important to remember, that the re-hospitalization, then the risk of, the mortality increases. The other few, Asian heart failure registry, like HEPPEP evidence, age, the female race, the EGFR, coming to the ischemic heart disease, coronary heart disease etiology, diabetes, CKD. What I showed in the earlier slide, the particular registry has shown that how this, the various comorbidity account for HEPPEP. Of course, the ACE inhibitor, beta blocker, MRAs are the standard drug, most of the time for control of, the hypertension and other risk factors, along with the treatment of heart failure. Most importantly, today, in 2021, we have to follow the ESC 2021 guideline. We have to remember the universal definition of heart failure. What does basically universal definition of heart failure tells us? We know that heart failure is a syndrome, which is symptoms and signs, and is due to the either metabolic or structural abnormality. With one of these two we need actually. So that is either enzymes, biomarkers, natriuretic peptides, or objective evidence of congestion, either pulmonary or systemic congestion. So the requirement for universal definition of heart failure, symptoms and sign, either the biomarker natriuretic or some evidence of congestion. So how to exactly go to the diagnostic algorithm? If you have suspected heart failure, go to the risk factor, symptoms and sign, abnormal ECG, measure the NT-proBNP. If it's more than 125 or BNP more than 35, if it is normal, heart failure is unlikely. If it is more, then we'll have to do the echo. Before that, if suppose NT-BNP or BNP cannot be done, you can go straight away with echocardiography. And then the abnormal finding, either ejection fraction equal to less than 40, we call it as HEPREP, equal to more than 50 is a HEPPEP, and between is the mid-range EF, which is now terminology current, is a mildly reduced. And then we have to go into the determine the etiology and the commence the treatment. So importantly, after going to the risk factor, symptom, sign, ECG, biomarkers like NT-proBNP or BNP and the echo. These two things are very, very important as per the universal definition is concerned. This is a point we must remember in 2021. We know that HEPREP is equal to less than 40, more than 50 is the HEPPEP. And this was same as earlier, 41 to 50 called as, mid-range EF, but now it is labeled as mildly reduced. So current terminology is a mildly reduced heart failure. And with the improved heart failure, this is important concept that, when the patient after the therapy, essentially with all these four pillar of the therapy, when the heart failure improves, we should not be immediately jumping to stop or reduce the medicine. And we say heart failure in AF, that is when the ejection fraction increases more than 10 points when you are doing the second measurement. So that's important point that this we have to remember. So 3 or 4 terminology, HEPREP, MRAF, mildly reduced, HEPPEP, and heart failure with the improved. This is what the universal definition. We know the stages of heart failure, which is the old one, but these things, at risk for heart failure, pre-heart failure, and advanced heart failure. These are the classification, and this is very important because we have an important, sort of responsibility as a clinician that you pick up the patient at risk or pre-heart failure. This is something like a pre-diabetic, pre-cancer, etc. So we have to pick up the patient in the stage A, stage B, before going to stage C, stage D. And this is very, very easy. So at this stage, patient has no symptom and no structural disease, only the risk factor like diabetes, hypertension, obesity, metabolic syndrome, all those things, sleep apnea, COPD, etc. Stage B, we have some structural heart disease there, but they don't have symptoms. Here, of course, symptoms are there, and then you have advanced heart failure. So importantly, I want to convey to all the delegates that remember this stage A, stage B. If you could prevent heart failure, nothing like it. If you have to see the Framingham heart study and you see the proportion of heart failure significantly increase over time. Initial 10 years, 1985 to 94, it was around 41%. And if you see in 2005 to 2014, it is 56%. And I'm sure now the last 5 years data will be still increased. See the p-value. So heart failure with the preserved HEPPEP is increasing as against, the reduced ejection fraction is reducing and the MREF is again increasing. Again, we have to remember that the HPEP is an important disease to diagnose and prevent actually. If you go to the Heart Failure Association ESC, the diagnostic chart for the preserved ejection, again, like, more like a PEP actually. P means, the pre-test assessment, then the E means basically echocardiography and the biomarker. F is a functional testing, and then the final etiology. Of course, these are all will be discussed in the course of our the entire session, like a functional test, like a diastolic stress test, echocardiography, invasive hemodynamic, and then the etiology like MR, CT, etc. Everything will be discussed, including the genetic testing. Whereas the initial workup is basically going into the comorbidity, ECG, the natriuretic peptide, 6-minute walking test, or the cardiopulmonary exercise testing, and the echo natriuretic peptide, as I mentioned earlier. Remember, in the echo and the natriuretic peptides, we have got the functional and morphological evaluation by looking at the echo, and natriuretic peptide will tell you about the biomarker. Remember, biomarker when you have atrial fibrillation is nearly 3 times at the sinus rhythm. Important. NTP and pro-BNP, more than 220 when you have a sinus rhythm. But when you have got AFib, we need a diagnosis of more than 660. That means 3 times. So also BNP 80 and here is 240. And functional is basically looking at the flow velocity, like, the septal E dash or the lateral E dash or the average E upon the annular upon the leaflet slope, and if it is equal to more than or TR velocity more than 2.8, which is a suggesting of a pulmonary artery, the pulmonary artery systolic pressure more than 35. They are the major point. And the morphology, of course, left atrial volume index and the left ventricular mass index. This is again is are important. And then you have got in between, there is a minor criteria. For major criteria, we equal to more than 5 points to diagnose HPEP. And if it's 2 to 4 points, then we need some other hemodynamic or a diastolic test which will be discussed in the course of time. So remember this HPEP score, that is H2 HPEP score. That means H2 means heavy, more than body mass index of more than 30. Obesity is very, very important to remember. Hypertension is important to remember. And then atrial fibrillation, pulmonary hypertension, elderly individual, feeling pressure, again going by the echocardiography, annular versus the leaflet, the flow, more than 9. So these all will, we know EMPA is the only drug which is for, the currently, as Dr. Manoria mentioned, and maybe the dapagliflozin by March or so we're going to get the thing. If you look at all the thing like, candesartan, perindopril, irbesartan, spironolactone, even the ARNI, they have not shown much benefit. Whereas if you see the Emperor preserved, the p-value is very significant. So probably the SGLT2 inhibitor may be the future in case of that. Now let us look at the guideline recommendation. Is one thing I will tell you about the prevention of heart failure, ESC guideline, and essentially for the diastolic heart failure, class 1A, which is again, picking up the comorbidity early. Statin therapy is one, SGLT2 inhibitor one, and then the lifestyle methods. These are important, the recommendation. HPREF, we are not talking now, MR, we are not talking. Now, this is the final slide, that recommendation for the treatment of patient with heart failure, the preserved ejection fraction. Basically, we don't have too many weapons. We have to screen, we have to treat the etiology, we have to look at the comorbidity, cardiovascular, non-cardiovascular, and, accordingly, we have to treat the class 1C expert opinion, and diuretics are recommended in congested patient in order to elevate the symptom. And I would personally say at this point, possibly the SGLT2 inhibitor like EMPA or dapagliflozin will be the way forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sadanand Shetty, for a very beautiful presentation. Dr. Sadanand Shetty, how does the LV geometry, it varies from the HFrEF to HFpEF. Almost it is in HFrEF, it is dilated.
Yeah.
On the contrary, do you think that it is the same, like a similar? And number 2 is, what are the prognostic indication, which you already mentioned to us? And the limitations in the biomarkers, because the biomarkers has no role in HFpEF. This thing is not elevated much as compared to heart failure, the reduced ejection fraction.
I agree. That is why the cutoff for the heart failure, for HFpEF, as I mentioned, pro BNP and the BNP level, I given the cutoff in case of diastolic heart failure, unlike the, the reduced ejection fraction, where we do significant difference. That I agree with you. And that is one point. Of course, structural, because basically in HFpEF, HFpEF is basically, very 3-4 condition only, I would say, like hypertension and elderly age group, atrial fibrillation, diabetes, and the other comorbid like, sleep apnea. So essentially, it's a systemic disease actually. So therefore, you at the most may get, hypertrophy, maybe little dilatation, but not like the reduced ejection fraction where it is thinned out. Same disease, if you continues like comorbidity continues, hypertension is not controlled or the diabetes is not controlled, etc. In the later stage, they may go into even the reduced ejection fraction. So much so, even with the prep, at times when we see the flow velocity, we do see diastolic dysfunction also. Filling also to some extent gets affected even with the prep like that. So basically, I don't think we need to have, in the current armamentarium, the SGLT2 is both drug. So one of the important point I want to convey here, SGLT2 drug will be one from the preventive, right? Stage A of heart failure to stage B, C, D like that. So with the advent of SGLT2, possibly we'll have to consider this drug in the early stage of this particular comorbidity. And, like Emperor preserved heart failure trial has shown the benefit, etc. So these may be the therapeutic way. And more than that, correct the risk factor, like we have to target the patient at the stage A. In a preventive cardiology, I would say diastolic heart failure is easily preventable. And that is because we have to give at stage A and stage B important. Moment you have a comorbidity likelihood, so you start using drugs which will prevent, like a dilatation hypertrophy, like, the SGLT2 has shown, remodeling the ventricle. You have got a diabetic, even a high risk, or even a non-diabetic hypertension. We can start on SGLT2 early so that it can prevent the diastolic heart failure, hypertrophy, remodeling. There are so many things, which is happening. So personally, I would feel, diastolic heart failure is as sinister as systolic heart failure, possibly because multiple risk factors are associated with diastolic heart failure, particularly diabetic hypertension, elderly age group, atrial fibrillation, sleep apnea, COPD. These are the problem, unlike, reduced ejection fraction. To some extent, reduced heart failure the mortality to some extent is improved now with the advent of ARNI, with the advent of, SGLT2, and the other drugs, standard drug, MRA, beta blocker. These are the 4 current pillars of therapy, which is unfortunately not there, but now probably SGLT2 will be a game changer. And maybe a new drug may come in the future. Till such time, correct the comorbidity and, take care and use as much as possible SGLT2 unless there are contraindications, unless we can't use that. So personally, I would consider FPEP today as dangerous as PrEP. Prevent it, stage A of the heart failure. That is the universal definition heart failure tells us that if you have a patient with a multiple comorbidity, target them very well. Optimum risk factor control, like hypertension, very, very important. We know we are loosely controlling hypertension. For example, I am more into ACC guideline for hypertension control for our people, particularly the younger individual. Keep the BP 120/80, 120 to 130 or 80 around diastolic. That will be important to prevent, even the diastolic heart failure in over time. So correct the risk factor, optimum control, and possibly we can prevent. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sadanand Chetty.